Welcome to part 3. The events begin with Askeladd recalls Thors as the troll of Jom and asks Floki whether he truly wants Thors dead because he is a hero to his people. Thors, according to Floki, would not have requested Askeladd to murder him if he was a hero. He claims Thors breached Jomsviking's regulations and abandoned the army during a combat, and that orders to execute him were issued over 15 years ago. Before chucking his cup, Askeladd remarks, "I knew the Jomsvikings had harsh regulations, but wanting to murder Thors after 15 years is rather excessive." Floki throws him a harsh look, prompting Askeladd to quickly declare that they will murder Thors as long as they are paid. Askeladd, on the other hand, wonders why, since Thors is a former member of their gang, the Jomsvikings don't murder him themselves, especially after Floki hunted him out in Iceland. While seeing his soldiers murder a Christian monk, Floki claims it is none of his business and urges Askeladd to stop asking questions. Askeladd agrees, but requests an additional 100 coins in advance for the task. Outside, Bjorn turns to observe Askeladd and Floki converse. Floki tells Askeladd firmly that he is overconfident and must believe he has the upper hand. A spear is hurled in their direction and falls between the two guys at a sheet on the wall. Bjorn apologizes for throwing the spear at them, and Askeladd stands up and jokes that he should be careful. Askeladd insists on another 100 coins, which Floki reluctantly concedes. Askeladd cheerfully declares himself to be a decent guy and wishes Floki good night. Before departing, Askeladd requests that the warrior Thor's physical characteristics and fighting technique be used to identify him. Thors, according to Floki, is no longer a warrior. Askeladd spills the barrel of booze and tells his soldiers it's time to get to work. Askeladd praises Bjorn for his spear throw, which he claims was simple, and claims that Floki was taken aback. When Floki lifts the covering, he discovers that the spear has pierced a Jomsviking hiding behind the wall. According to Floki, Askeladd is more than just chatter. Ari pays a visit to a drowsy Ylva at her house in the early morning and pledges to return from his victory in England with a necklace for her. He also attempts to propose marriage to her, but is cut off by his mother, who is bringing him lunch. Ari feels humiliated and walks away from his mother, but he assures Ylva that they will resume their chat when he returns. Ylva recalls that they are about to go to war in hopes that no one dies. All of the other young guys suddenly approach Ylva and want to chat to her, to her chagrin. The young guys said their goodbyes to their families at the docks. One of the villagers claims that only 5 young men are insufficient for military might and barely enough to carry a ship, but that if Thors says it's enough, it should be okay. Mord inquires as to what Ari said to Ylva, to which she responds by instructing him to shut up and keep away from her. Mord threatens Ari on the battlefield, and Ari responds by threatening Mord. A young woman approaches Ari and warns him to be cautious, but he and Mord continue to argue. Leif approaches the young woman and tells her a secret: Ari and the other men will not fight. They will stop in Norway on their route to Jomsborg and leave the young guys behind. Thors will recruit a team from the king to assist him go to Jomsborg while in Norway. Leif claims that it is conceivable since he was pals with Norway's former monarch. Leif will return the young guys to Iceland after his business is completed. The young woman is glad to hear this and happy that the lads are safe. Leif claims that the most number of passengers he can sail back to Iceland on his little ship is 5, and Thors will not have to transport any of them to England. The young woman wonders whether this means Thors will fight alone. Meanwhile, Thors searches the hamlet for Thorfinn, wondering where his son has gone. Following that, the guys are ready to set sail and man the oars. The 5 men row on one side of Thor's ship, while Thors rows with one enormous oar on the other. Ylva is perplexed as to why Thorfinn isn't present to see their father off and suspects that he is still upset from yesterday. Thors begs Helga to tell Thorfinn something, but is too shy to speak it aloud. Helga recognizes what he means and offers to inform him. Leif strikes a drum and instructs the men to row. The 2 ships sail away from the docks, and the young men are taken aback by Thor's ability to row the big oar by himself. The locals wave goodbye, and Helga and Ylva leave with a melancholy expression. The young guys are all fatigued after a long day of rowing, except for Thors, who looks fine. Thors instructs Ari to take charge of the rudder, Mord and Magni of the sail, and Harkon and Grim of the jib sheet. Thors senses their tiredness and informs them that they will not have to row for some time since the wind currents will move the ship for them. Suddenly, Thor's father phones him and asks if they can't turn back now, which Thors affirms. Thors and Ari are taken aback, and it is discovered that Thorfinn hid under a barrel. The youngster dashes to the ship's side to urinate into the sea. Thorfinn is mesmerized by the ocean scenery, while Thors is plainly irritated at his son. Thorfinn informs his father that he can see the ocean before he can chastise him. Thors calms down and becomes delighted by his son's behavior. Meanwhile, Askeladd and his men travel from Streamway in the Faroe Islands to hunt down and slay Thors for the Jomsvikings. Askeladd informs Bjorn that the work assigned to them is suspect since Floki is concealing too much information. He feels he lied about the execution orders for Thor's. Bjorn inquires as to why, and Askeladd responds that Floki may have a personal vendetta, and that ordering Thor's killing is his own idea. Bjorn wonders why it matters when they would be paid to kill him. Askeladd questions why Floki wouldn't use his own men to murder Thor's, to which Bjorn responds that it would be against his instructions, which Askeladd agrees with. According to Askeladd, Floki may be terrified of failure, which would be devastating if his superior found out. Bjorn does not believe that a single former Jomsviking can overcome a complete Jomsviking squad. Askeladd expresses his wish to meet Thor's and thinks that the struggle will be worth it. Simultaneously, Thorfinn attempts to climb the mast of his father's ship, but Thor's grabs him and spanks him for sneaking aboard. Thorfinn has slept off at night as Thor's and Ari sail. Ari yawns and wonders where they're heading because there are no stars to guide them. Leif informs Thor's that the wind has shifted and that he must lean slightly to the right in order to follow the lead of his smaller ship. Ari is astounded by Leif's sailing ability and looks to the water for guidance. Thor's warns Ari not to look at the night sea or he may be pulled in. Ari agrees and asks Thor's about the battlefield. Ari believes Thor's must have fought in several battles and wishes to hear a narrative about it. Then he brags about killing an enemy captain and becoming a true guy. Thor's informs Ari that his daughter is drawn to big guys and that he faces a difficult battle. Ari feels embarrassed that Thor's can readily read his emotions and claims that nothing escapes him. Thor's inquires about Ari's feelings for Ylva, which he affirms. While reminiscing about her birth, Thor's recalls she was born while he was a Jomsviking and his firstborn child. Thor's is upset that his first child is a girl and is irritated by her crying 15 years ago. Thor's pulls her up without supporting her head, much to the chagrin of the midwives. Thor's returns his daughter to Helga and requests that she bear him a son next, since the chief prefers a male. Thor's reminds the audience that his wife, Helga, is the daughter of the Jomsviking leader and that she narrowly survived the baby's birth. Thor's tells Helga to name their kid, but Helga says she can't since he has to leave to Norway with the other Jomsvikings. Thor's turns to depart when a fellow Jomsviking informs him that their ship is ready. Helga, on the other hand, insists that Thor's name their kid. Thor's observes that this was the first time he had seen Helga enraged. Back in the present, Thor's informs Ari that Ylva was his mother's name and that it was the first name that sprang to mind. Thor's claims that Ylva's birth triggered his fear of war and drove him to flee. Thor's laments that his former companions have most likely cursed his name. Leif suddenly exclaims that they are approaching the Faroe Islands. Thor's and Leif's ships are traveling across the Faroe Islands in the morning, seeking for a location to land. Thorfinn awakens to see seagulls around their ship and notices the cliff edge of one of the islands. Thorfinn asks his father, eagerly, if they are in England. Leif responds that they are nowhere near England. He adds that they are in the Faroe Islands, between Iceland and Norway, and that stopping here will make their travel simpler. Leif claims that a settlement exists beyond the neighboring inlet where they may obtain fresh water and trade supplies. Ari playfully asks Thorfinn whether he intends to accompany them to England, which he innocently affirms. To their chagrin, Thor's instructs the young guys to prepare to row. Leif thinks something is awry when the two ships paddle through the fjord. Thor's inquires as to what it is, and Leif responds that something appears to be different from his previous visit here. Thor's looks around to check whether they're being followed, and Leif notices that the settlement on the shore has fewer dwellings than last time. Thor's advises Leif to turn back since he has a terrible sensation and the terrain is dangerous for them. As Thor's and Leif turn their ships around, a group of men on the bluff watch and know they are being watched. They believe that because the ship's sailors are careful, they must be powerful. The commander declares that they are getting closer than expected, but instructs the other men to push a pile of broken wood and debris down the cliff regardless of whether or not the ship is damaged. The debris almost touches the ships and forms a barrier, preventing them from exiting the inlet. Leif inquires of Thor's whether anyone was injured by the debris, and everyone confirms that they are all right. Thor's warns that the ambushers will employ arrows and instructs everyone to utilize shields. Then he asks Leif if his ship has been harmed, and Leif answers that his ship and crew are in good condition. Thor's looks out to sea and claims that the true trap lies within the entrance. Everyone hears a drum bang, and two ships sail into the inlet to assault them. Ari assumes they are pirates, and the spectator learns that Askeladd organized the ambush and guided his two ships into the entrance to murder Thor's, as he was hired to do. Thor's and Leif's companies are stuck in the inlet as Askeladd and his crew approach, and, just as Thor's anticipated, a group of archers fire at them. According to one of Leif's men, the rubble obstructing their passage resembles house support beams, and there appears to be no way out. Magni claims that if they all submit, the pirates could let them live. Ari declares that they will not spare them and that if they are not killed, the pirates will sell them into slavery. He anxiously pulls his sword and declares that they will easily beat the two ships. Thor's reassures Ari, saying that these pirates are veteran fighters considerably superior to him and the other young guys. Thor's pats Thorfinn on the back of the head and draws his sword from his old chest. Thor's takes his dagger but chooses to give it to Thorfinn, warning him to only use it as a last resort to protect himself. Ari inquires whether they would kill the pirates, but Thor's warns him not to use the term kill carelessly. On one of the ships, Askeladd's second in command, Bjorn, puts a mushroom in his mouth, much to the chagrin of his companions, who appear to know what it accomplishes. Bjorn counts the targets and reports that there are 12 men and 1 child. Bjorn asks Askeladd if he can look after them because it wouldn't be enjoyable if everyone went after them at the same time, and he wants to face the troll of Jom himself. To Bjorn's surprise, Askeladd advises him to go ahead since Thor's seem to have had the same intention. Thor's appears out of nowhere and rushes onto Bjorn's ship, handily defeating his opponents barehanded. Thor's martial abilities astound both Bjorn and Askeladd. Thor's, on the other hand, does not kill any of them, instead leaving them with bloody bruises and broken bones and saving a man from drowning by tossing him an oar to keep him afloat. 2 of the men ask Bjorn what they should do, but Bjorn simply twitches and growls in rage. Bjorn is overcome by a berserker rage and attacks his allies as Thor's continues to fight Askeladd's men. They are terrified and believe Bjorn has gone insane. In rage, Bjorn throws 2 of his men into the air and smashes the ship's floor. One of the men declares that Bjorn will destroy the ship, and they all jump overboard to escape his wrath. Thor's notices that Bjorn has eaten a berserker mushroom as he bangs his head against the mast. Bjorn, in rage, suddenly notices Thor's and charges at him to attack. Thor's quickly deflects Bjorn's attack with a punch to the right eye. Ignoring his pain, Bjorn attacks Thor's again, but the troll of Jom easily sends the berserker flying with an uppercut. Thor's display of power leaves Askeladd's men speechless. Thor's shifts his focus to Askeladd's ship, but an injured Bjorn gets up once more to continue their fight. Meanwhile, Askeladd and his men approach Thor's and Leif's ships, causing panic among the boys. Ari tells the other boys that he would rather fight to the death than be captured and sold into slavery. Askeladd orders his men to capture the boys alive and unharmed because they will not sell for a high price at the slave market if they are not. Askeladd's men cross over to Thor's boat on 2 wooden planks and assault the boys. Thor's, on the other hand, throws Bjorn overboard, and the berserker's body lands on one of the planks, destroying them before Askeladd's men can cross. Thor's then, much to everyone's surprise, jumps back onto his ship with great speed and agility. Thor's draws his sword quickly and destroys the other plank, sending some of Askeladd's men into the water. Thor's informs Askeladd's remaining crew that they have lost half of their forces and offers to save their lives if they leave him and his friends alone. Askeladd simply laughs with delight. While Askeladd's men assist Bjorn in getting out of the water, Thor's orders the pirates to leave because they are unable to defeat him. One of Askeladd's archers takes aim at Thor's and prepares to shoot him in rage from atop the fjord. One of his comrades stops him and tells him not to shoot Thor's until Askeladd signals. Thor's confidence in fighting 2 warships on his own impresses Leif. One of Leif's men suggests that they fight as well, but Leif counters that doing so will aggravate the situation because archers are watching them from atop the cliff. Leif suggests that they leave it to Thor's because he is the only one who understands what he is doing. The man tries to argue back, but Leif firmly states that, aside from Thor's, they are all inexperienced children who have never been in a real battle and relying on Thor's is their only option. Thor's quickly realizes, however, that these pirates are not the type of men to flee when threatened. Thor's observes that the archers on the cliff have yet to fire any arrows and counts approximately 30 men on Askeladd's ship. Thor's tells himself that he could easily kill 30 armed men on his own, but because their ships are so close, the pirates could jump aboard his ship, leaving the boys to fend for themselves. Thor's scans the pirates and locks his gaze on Askeladd. Thor's points his sword at Askeladd and asks if he is the leader before challenging him to a duel in Odin's name. Thor's says that if Askeladd wins, he can do whatever he wants, but if he loses, Askeladd and his pirate crew must leave immediately. According to the former Viking, if Askeladd refuses, he will lose 3 times as many men to capture a dozen slaves. Askeladd asks Thor's how he knew he was the leader, and the troll of Jom responds that it was because of the smell. Askeladd laughs with delight and accepts the duel. Thor's directs the boys to remain near the ship's bow. Askeladd jumps onto Thor's ship and tells him that he smelled something about him as well and that they have the same odor, addressing him as the troll of Jom. Thor's is taken aback that Askeladd recognizes him and quickly realizes that Floki sent him. Thor's quick deduction impresses Askeladd, who compliments him on his intelligence. Thorfinn tells Askeladd angrily that his father is not a bad person like him. Thor's instructs Thorfinn to remain where he has stated. Thorfinn, on the other hand, continues his childish tantrum, telling Askeladd that his father is strong and will kill him. Askeladd is amused and tells Thor's that his son is brave. Magni drags Thorfinn back to the ship's bow and tells him to shut up. Thor's asks Askeladd if he has a wife and children, but he says no. Thor's realizes he can't sympathize with him and suggests they begin their duel. Thor's begins by slowly approaching Askeladd in order to close the gap between them. Askeladd notices this and cuts a rope, allowing the ship's sail to fall to the ground, catching Thor's off guard. Askeladd moves under the sail in an instant and swings his blade at Thor's. Thor's is caught off guard by this surprise attack, which he attempts to avoid. Askeladd manages to slash Thor's chest, but it is too shallow. Thor's lunges at Askeladd, who barely avoids it and backs away from the troll of Jom. Thorfinn and Askeladd's crew both cheer on Askeladd and Thor's. Askeladd is surprised that Thor's can counterattack so quickly after being cut, and he realizes that sneak attacks are no longer viable options. Askeladd tells himself that fighting Thor's was worth coming to the Faroe Islands for. Thor's looks at the blood on Askeladd's hand and compliments him on his strength, promising not to hold back. Askeladd expresses his delight at this news. Thor's rushes up to Askeladd and overwhelms him with a series of sword swings. To avoid Thor's powerful blows, Askeladd is forced to go on the defensive. Ari notices this and cheerfully declares that Thor's has the upper hand. Askeladd's crew is concerned that he will lose. Thorfinn enthusiastically encourages his father and orders him to kill Askeladd. Askeladd notices his sword has been chipped by Thor's powerful swings and realizes it will break soon. Askeladd believes Thor's sword is becoming chipped and brittle after dodging his attack. Askeladd's quick timing allows him to break Thor's sword's blade with his armor, leaving only the hilt. Askeladd seizes the opportunity and goes for the kill, but Thor's counterattacks by quickly striking Askeladd's arm before his swing, causing him to drop his sword. Thor's takes his sword and places it at Askeladd's neck while Askeladd's arm twitches, leaving the pirate at his mercy. Askeladd realizes Thor's duped him, and the fight was never in his favor. Thorfinn and the other boys rejoice over Thor's victory. When Askeladd asks Thor's why he doesn't deliver the final blow, the former Jomsviking responds that there is no need and that all he wants is for Askeladd to surrender. Askeladd points to his crew and declares that he is their leader and he will not admit defeat in front of them. To the troll of Jom's chagrin, Askeladd claims that if Thor's does not kill him, the duel will never end. An injured Bjorn awakens on Askeladd's ship to find Askeladd at Thor's mercy. Askeladd's men are stunned to learn that their leader has been defeated. Thor's orders Askeladd to surrender and withdraw his troops as promised. Askeladd simply praises Thor's strength and wonders why such a powerful warrior would spend 15 years hiding and wasting his skill in Iceland. Thor's responds that he does not, and that the fact that he must rely on a sword demonstrates his flaws. Thor's tells Askeladd that a true warrior does not require a sword. To everyone's surprise, Askeladd asks Thor's if he wants to lead his pirate band. After a brief pause, Askeladd claims he was joking and wonders why everyone is so serious. Bjorn yells, "This isn't the time for jokes," and leaps over to Thor's ship. Bjorn quickly kidnaps Thorfinn and threatens to cut off his head with his own dagger if Thor's does not drop his weapon. Thor's curses Askeladd, who laughs sadistically and blames the former Jomsviking for believing pirates. Askeladd claims he was just having fun and wanted to learn more about the infamous troll of Jom. Thor's, enraged, swings his sword at Askeladd's neck, but comes to a halt at the last second. Thor's informs Askeladd that he broke the rules of their duel and thus declares himself the victor. Askeladd claims he doesn't care and plans to kill him. Thor's realizes this and, much to everyone's surprise, throws his sword into the water. Askeladd admits defeat by ordering his men to fire arrows at Thor's. Thor's is impaled by countless arrows, causing Thorfinn to yell in despair for his father. Despite his injuries, Thor's tells Askeladd to respect his word as a warrior and accept defeat in the duel. Askeladd agrees and promises to withdraw his men in the name of his ancestor Artorius. Thor's then requests that Leif bring his head to Sigvaldi, the Jomsviking chieftain. He claims that if Sigvaldi believes he chose to hide in order to avoid his summons, his Icelandic village will be punished instead. Leif sobs, telling Thor's that he can't be serious. Ari and his friends are also in tears of despair. Thor's turns to Bjorn and tells him that he gave them his life as they desired, and then orders him to release Thorfinn with an angry glare. Bjorn, who is terrified, obeys the request and releases the distraught boy, who embraces his father. Thor's sighs in relief as he smiles and weakly comforts his son with a pat on the head. Outraged by Thor's death, Ari uses his sword to kill Askeladd in retaliation. The pirate captain, on the other hand, easily avoids the boy's assault and punches him away. Ari is insulted by Askeladd, who tells him to be grateful that Thor's sacrificed himself so that he can live. Thorfinn sobs angrily as he grasps his father's standing corpse. Afterwards, Thorfinn is shown sobbing over the death of his father beneath a ship. Thorfinn is perplexed as to why his father said a warrior does not need a sword and why he had to die while Askeladd is still alive. Askeladd and his crew are sailing at night with Thor's warship in tow. Torgrim explains that Leif and the others abandoned the ship because they couldn't sail it without Thor's. Thorfinn unexpectedly appears on his father's ship, much to Torgrim's surprise. Meanwhile, a sleepy Askeladd recalls that Thor's injured 28 of his men but killed none. Suddenly, one of his men summons him to the stern. Thor's son stowed away on his ship, according to Torgrim. Askeladd's men start mocking and laughing at Thorfinn while pretending to be afraid. Thorfinn yells angrily at Askeladd for killing his father and swears that he will avenge him by killing him. Atli claims Thorfinn is just a boy, but the look in his eyes surprises him. Thorgrim asks Askeladd if they should throw Thorfinn overboard, but Askeladd refuses, believing that Thorfinn will die on his own. Thorfinn sobs and begs for his father. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.